Howdy, howdy. I was gonna put on some makeup before this video, but you know what? I just don't have time for it. And I know I'm gonna sweat it off anyway, so this is my face. So it's a beautiful Memorial Day. It's actually nice and cool outside, which is quite a drastic change. It was very dry and very hot just a couple days ago, and then we had a storm come through, which I was very thankful for. But I've got a few things to do today. One of them is I have to switch around the living quarters and sort of the pasturing for my goats. And then also I'm gonna try to start my second fermentation round for my kombucha and do some good flavorings for that. First, before I move the goats, I need to make sure that the fence that I'm moving them to, the fencing where I'm moving them to, is secure because they are escape artists and they are small and they are wily. So I'm gonna go kind of walk the perimeter and see if everything's good to go. Sit. Okay, let's go. Come on, can't leave the chickens. I know it's hard. So here's the deal with the switching the fencing around with the goats today. We have basically two ways to pasture goats. There's a field on either side of my house. And you can essentially have two different groups of goats that stay in the same barn, but the fencing is closed off and the stalls are closed off where they can't get to each other, but they can both go out to pasture. They just go to separate pastures. My granddaddy has had boar goats for years. There are only two left now, but they're significantly bigger than mine. And just a very different type of goat. They have very different personalities. They've been in one fencing, and sometimes I will put my mini Nubians, they're a little bigger than the Nigerian dwarves and they have horns. I used to put them in with the boars because I knew they could handle themselves with those bigger goats. But now I have two bucks, which if you're not familiar with the terminology, that just means I have two male goats that are intact. They haven't been neutered, so that I could breed the herd myself instead of borrowing a buck or renting a buck. So I'm really excited about that and being able to build the herd myself. But where do the bucks go? Because they become active pretty early on. My vet said around 4 or 5 months. So I was eager to separate them out as quickly as possible. That way we didn't have any inbreeding with the different family lines, and we also didn't have young does getting pregnant too early, because that can obviously lead to serious complications such as needing C-sections because their bodies can't handle being pregnant that early or delivering that early. So his two boars are just going to join my girls and maybe a couple of the wethers in one field, and then the bucks will get their own pasture, maybe with some of the other wethers to keep them company. So yeah, we just have to close off some different gates and change that up, and then the exciting part, which is moving the goats in between areas. So that should be fun. My dad built this fencing it was probably at least 15 years ago, and it's held up really well. It's the perfect fencing for goats. But every now and then stuff happens, a tree will hit the fence and sort of smush it down a little bit, or split some of the posts. So I just have to check on that, especially when a storm comes through. The amazing thing about goats is that they are, and you might have heard this, they are really good at clearing all of this crap that you see. So all of the sort of clutter on the forest floor, just the undergrowth in general, goats will just strip that out. And so you can really see the difference between a property that's had goats on it, hey Winnie, and one that hasn't, because the one with goats on it is going to be a lot cleaner. People will actually hire their goat herds out now to clear brush and clear undergrowth from other people's property. So they'll have portable fencing, and they'll load up a herd of goats and take them to somebody else's property and let them clean it out for them. So I've yet to figure out how to do that myself, but who knew that you could actually hire goats to do your yard work. They're already in the barn for their afternoon nap, so Winnie's presence kind of alerts them. But she starts to whine because she wants to chase them so bad. You ready to move it out into the pasture? Finally get to graze again? You haven't gotten to graze in several days. I've just been feeding them grain instead, and they would much prefer to graze. So this is where I want most of the herd to go. So I'm just going to see if I open this up, if they'll just go in out of curiosity. And if they don't, then I can always get some food to motivate. Yep, they're going. It's amazing how curious they are. They just want to test out any new space. Yeah, go ahead. Marsha's like, I'm not sure about this. Okay, come on, let's go. Go. Come on, buddy. Oh, gonna go over here, Mama. Come on, gotta go. Say hello. Say hello. Mwah. This is one of the Weathers. He's so sweet. Okay, come on. There we go. Good. Good job. It's everybody. That's why you can do the dog space. Checking out the new space. What do you think, Hercules? Okay, excuse me. I got the nail out. Had to put down the camera to do it. But this barn, that was another thing I was going to mention. This barn is made out of oak. And it's been here for, gosh, I want to say since the 70s. Maybe the early 80s, but I want to say like the late 70s. My dad actually helped his dad build this, so this is built by a family, so it's really special to me. But yeah, the oak is so hard that putting nails in and taking them out is really difficult. They actually bend, like you can even see this one's warped. That they just bend like they're made out of putty when you try to hammer them in. But yeah, I got the door open though. That's what counts. So now I need to move the bucks into their new area, and then pick out a couple Weathers to put in with them. Winnie, you're being so good. You're being so good. You're just sitting there, putting the camera down because I'm probably gonna have to pick the bucks up. So I'm gonna smell great for the rest of the day. Come on, right here. Bart, come on, buddy. Bart, don't go that way. All right, come here. All right, we're going in this way, okay? I'm gonna tell you. Good boy. There you go. The one issue that I'm seeing so far is that Marsha, one of my horned goats, got herself stuck in the fence for a minute. I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's the only challenge with the type of fencing that we use. So, goats have the classic grass is always greener on the other side complex, and no matter how much they have to eat, within an enclosure they're always going to stick their heads through. And these holes, here's where the problem was. This is, one of the wires has been broken out here. I actually saw a deer yeet through this exact hole recently, which was kind of impressive. But, I mean, it's not very big, but it's big enough that Marsha just stuck her head through comfortably, but she couldn't quite figure out how to get her head back out. And that's usually something that goats with horns have to figure out when they're on around fencing like this, is they will stick their heads through, and when they're little, their horns aren't an issue. But as soon as they start to get longer, one day the horns don't slip out anymore when they go to pull their heads out of these squares, and they can get stuck there. And it's a pretty frustrating and kind of stressful thing to get them out, because you're trying not to hurt your own fingers, especially like since I'm a musician professionally. I can't risk injuries like that. But so that's always a little tricky. The best thing to do is just to put some work gloves on and just kind of work with them and keep them calm and get them out. I've never had anything bad happen with that. It's just it's a little tricky. And overall, this fencing is so good. It's so perfect for goats. It's just tall enough to where they won't jump over it. And you know, it lets me reach through and pet them or work with them or feed them, all that stuff. So it's great fencing. But that is the one, if you're looking to put fencing on your farm and you're kind of looking at all the information, that is the one thing that you need to watch out for. And yet another reason why it's actually probably more humane to disbud your goats, or you know, or in other words, dehorn them at an early age. Oh, there's a hawk flying over. So my granddaddy showed up just in time, and I asked him about this, and he just, thankfully this piece here, it wasn't broken, although I mean it'd be easier to replace, but yeah, he just used the pliers and bent this back around here, and then he made a few adjustments to the wire to adjust the tension. But yeah, that'll keep anything from really getting through either way. Hey buddy. And I watched him, so I know how to do it next time. Granddaddy helped me get a couple of things done. There was a gate that had come off its hinges up there that I couldn't align by myself, so he helped me with that too. Meanwhile, the boars have come back from the field, and they're in here with mine for the first time, and they're working out their differences. There's a natural period of bickering that they go through, where they're figuring out the pecking order. So that's to be expected. The only thing I am going to watch for and monitor is if it gets too far. So this is Lucy. Yes. And then this is Katie. And those are the two left over from the old herd, from Granddaddy's herd. And they are boar goats, which is a meat goat, although that's not what we had them for, or not what Granddaddy had them for. He just had them for recreation. But yeah, very different kind of goat. But they seem to be getting along okay so far. So. See, come here. You have to learn how to use arms, your hands, and your legs here on the farm. Just to keep everybody in line. That's right. You show off. You're a show off. They're so happy to be out. I don't think I have talked about my kombucha that much on this channel so far, but it'll be a year later this summer that I've been brewing it. And it's going really well. The SCOBY has just grown massively. As you can see, all of this in here is SCOBY. Down through here. And it makes really tasty kombucha. And a lot of times I'll just drink it with the first fermentation. So the deal with the different levels of fermentation is you always have to do a first fermentation, and that's where the SCOBY eats the sugar that you give it, and you sort of pick the acidity that you want it to have, so you taste test it. This jar has a spout on it, and so I can sample it to see if it's got the right tang to it, and you really just kind of judge by taste. So that's the first fermentation, and that's what it takes to make kombucha. If you want to, you can do a second fermentation where you put it in, you add some sort of extra source of sugar. So a lot of people will do like a fruit. You put that in there without the SCOBY, and you seal it up and make it airtight, and it'll go through a second fermentation process where the amount of fizziness will increase a lot, and it'll have some sort of great flavor depending on what you add to it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do, and we'll see how it goes. It's been a while since I've done this, so. But you will not believe when I take it out this SCOBY how much there is in there.
This is how it really should be.
So I ran out of space on my camera yesterday, but I wanted to show you the finished product. So back here in this jar is the flavored kombucha that's going to go through its second fermentation. So it is, it's hard to see in this corner, but it's a beautiful shade of red. The kombucha will continue to eat some of that sugar and wait 1 second, and create some more fermentation. So that's the second fermentation for this one, and then meanwhile the next fermentation is well on its way, and yeah, then you just leave it there for a few days and it ferments again, and then it's ready to go into a second fermentation like this one. So you just kind of keep on with this continuous process.